Picture this young woman, let's call her, I don't know, Jill. She is nondescript, reticent, timid. Her colleagues barely notice her. She dresses modestly, for lack of a better word. She is what you'd call mousy, unremarkable, uninteresting, almost invisible. Then one day, the entire department is invited to the Renaissance Fair, and costumes are required. Most of the workers show up and witness the transformation. The mouse is now a dazzling star, and 5 minutes into the affair, she knows it. She is smiling luminously. Everybody's paying attention. Folks strike up conversations with her, and she answers readily, boldly, and she laughs easily. She's full of joy. She shines. She speaks confidently. Wait a minute, that's Jill? Really? Our Jill?
What women wear at the Renaissance Fair is not fashion history.
It's a selective revival of silhouettes that flatter the human body and express confidence. We're not talking about correct 16th century understructures, period accurate proportions, historically faithful materials, or tailoring logic. They're wearing corset inspired bodices, often Victorian, not Renaissance, exaggerated waists, lifted bust lines, controlled volume, rich textures and colors. This is not ignorance, it's curation. The two revolutions, American and French, changed the general approach to fashion forever. Men's fashion transformation was no less dramatic than women's, with one important distinction. Once transformed from, stockings, breeches, and overcoats to jackets, trousers, and leather shoes, the fashion just froze in time. Nothing has changed in principle for, 2 centuries now. Pants widened and narrowed, tails disappeared, the top hat was replaced by the
Derby.
then by the cap, and then by nothing. Neckties emerged, vanished, and re emerged, but the overall look has remained largely the same. The cultural responsibility for visible beauty was offloaded onto women
What the fuck?
and has been with women ever since. Now, prior to those two revolutions, aristocratic women, the elite, wore panniers, two baskets of whalebone or cane.
This corresponded with a period of architecture known as Rococo.
Late Baroque with excessive ornament, often dismissed as garish by modern taste, even though I personally do have a soft spot for it. Garish or good taste? I'm still a bit torn on that. Immediately following the French Revolution, women's fashions went through two periods that imitated to some extent Greek and Roman antiquity. The Directoire and the Empire style. In other words, Robespierre and Napoleon. The corresponding change in architecture was
The shift from Rococo to Classicism, minimal yet elegant.
this was followed by the brief romantic interruption. The waist dropped, the fabrics became thicker, less austere. Neoclassical buildings began to appear all over the world, and these were residential buildings, not just like churches and palaces. And then the hoop skirt made a comeback. The steel hooped cage crinoline. Those cages were mass produced in huge quantities, with factories across the Western world churning out tens of thousands a year. Alternative materials, such as whalebone, again, were used for hoops. This was followed by the bustle, corresponding to the advent of Beaux-Arts in architecture. In the era known in France as La Belle Époque and in the United States as the Gilded Age, the Gibson girl style emerged along the East Coast and then in the rest of the Republic as the personification of the feminine ideal of physical attractiveness, as portrayed by the pen and ink illustrations of Charles Dana Gibson. It corresponded to the
Art Nouveau
movement in architecture, all those, floral designs and ornaments and whatnot. Then there was the S-blend period and the pre-war practical period. By the mid-20th century, architecture across Europe and America shed ornament with like neo-religious zeal, a constructed environment hostile to beauty and to humans in general. The 1940s, the World War II decade, introduced leg exposure as a staple in women's fashion. Now, to be sure, there had been earlier moments, of course, the 1920s come to mind, but by the 1940s, this was no longer an exception. And by the 1950s, leg exposure was firmly established, which to my way of thinking is a good thing. But then again, I'm an artist, so I'm kind of partial and kind of biased that way. After the war came the baby boom. Women had entered the workforce in large numbers, and there was this visible effort to steer them back towards domestic life. The fashion industry responded with this exaggerated form of femininity, highly stylized, carefully managed, and, I'd say sappy, cloying, not at all convincing. Then came the 1960s. The miniskirt and the mini dress appeared. That was a dramatic shift.
For all its odd proportions, this was arguably the last major eruption of overt femininity in everyday women's clothing.
But this was often paired with heavy boots, boxy tops, formless, and silhouettes that flattened rather than articulated the body. That decade embraced juvenilization, and fashion followed suit. And then the clincher came. The pantsuit became the norm. 200 years of feminism, 2 centuries of struggle, and suddenly the tone changed. The pantsuit marked a turning point. Equality pursued through sameness rather than distinction. You see, classical feminism championed equal rights, universal suffrage, equal opportunity in keeping with one's distinctive qualities. The goal was to make women equal as women, specifically, to allow women to have their dignity as a natural God-given right, not to make them conduct themselves or dress like men. Universal suffrage is best represented by an equal number of pants and skirts at the polls. Pants and skirts, not pants and pants. Instead, from the 1960s on, women's fashions have been stubbornly chipping away at femininity, at female dignity. They have been dismal, boring, gender effacing, disdainful of individuality. Ren Fair costumes accomplish three things. They acknowledge sexual dimorphism, waist, hips, bust, posture. These clothes are unapologetically shaped. Whereas today's fashion often pretends that bodies are abstract, shape is optional, the attraction is politically awkward, Ren Fair costumes say, "This is a human body. Look at it, you moron." Number two, these outfits are not casual, not utilitarian, not apologetic. They imply occasion, performance, and yes, status, even if it's playful. People respond to ceremony instinctively. Number three, they license confidence. Here's the key psychological move. At the Renaissance Fair, beauty is allowed. Display is expected. Knowing you look good is part of the game. And there is no moral penalty for being striking. Post 1815, ornament was assigned to women. Following World War II, we stripped ornament away entirely from women's fashion and from architecture. This is a school our children go to every day. And this is a building in which people live now. Happy? Renaissance fair culture proved something crucial. The appetite for ornament never went away. It was merely displaced into play, nostalgia, and costume. What today's culture says,
"You can't dress like that and expect to be taken seriously."
and people respond,
Fine, we'll just do it as fantasy then.
which is exactly what Ren Fair's cosplay, historical reenactment, and costume parties are. They are aesthetic pressure valves, which is why women at Ren Fairs stand straighter, move differently, make eye contact, and know they look good. Jill looks good and she knows it. The clothes are doing what clothes are supposed to do. Ironically, a term from the past comes to mind: liberation. It may be a bit late in the day, so many years after the sexual revolution, to talk about morality in clothing, wouldn't you say? I mean, society frowns on the unusual, and feminine clothes have become unusual. Humans dread ridicule. Jill is afraid to look feminine lest someone says derisively, "Who does she think she is?" Renaissance fair costumes succeed because they bypass today's absurd aesthetic guilt, reintroduce form, structure, and spectacle. When given permission to wear structured, ornamental, body aware clothing, women don't become ridiculous, they become radiant.
And they know it because the mirror, the posture, and the reactions all confirm it.
Which raises the uncomfortable follow up question: if this works so well in costume, why are we so afraid to let it work in real life? Well, the first thing we should do is amazingly simple. We should shorten the term costume party to just party. That's not nostalgia, that's social repair. And why not? Party, soiree. Yes, I know you can't cook or run or ride the subway in a bustle or a crinoline. Well, at least not comfortably, but you're not supposed to. Formal dress is for display. It signals pause. It marks time as special. Why not? Why not make classic silhouettes part of having a good time each time you go out? Some folks could and should look at it as a fantastic business opportunity because that's what it would be. Designers and tailors can and should come up with some radical solutions.
Smartass.
Modern materials allow collapsible structure, snap systems, modular understructures, restroom friendly engineering, and 30 seconds put on, put off, if desired. If desired, since it's every woman's sacred right to spend inordinate amounts of time in front of the mirror.
My sacred right, y'all.
Yes, women love to fuss with their clothes because it's ritual, preparation, and anticipation. All are highly important concepts and beautiful. And so here's our friend Jill. Look how happy she is. Look how happy they all are. Liberation? Liberation from what? Think about it.